Good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Williams. Today I'm going to introduce to you my capstone project, the Virtual Meeting Toolbox. Before I dive into the specifics of the project, however, I want to give you a brief overview of today's presentation so you know what to expect. I'm going to begin by explaining the project objectives, why it was implemented, what the toolbox is. Then we'll discuss how I measured success through the project itself. And lastly, I'll talk to the barriers of which I experienced throughout the implementation and what opportunities I feel the future might hold. The two key project objectives were to increase employee engagement and satisfaction through increased participation and attendance in department meetings. To understand the why, I need to give you a little small background to the organization and my role within it. You see, I came to work as a diagnostic imaging manager at Virginia Mason Memorial in January of 2020. At the time of my hire, Virginia Mason Memorial shared the responsibility of healthcare delivery with Astoria Hospital here in Yakima. Shortly after my hire, Astoria closed its doors. So we had essentially one hospital serving the entire area of the Yakima County. Suddenly, Virginia Mason Memorial Imaging was seeing approximately 30% increase in diagnostic imaging across all of the modalities. Shortly after this, the country experienced the human coronavirus pandemic, or COVID-19. In the pre-COVID environment, or PC, the imaging departments were very busy. Every day we had a morning huddle in the director's office that lasted nearly 15 minutes. Most everyone met prior to the meeting being started, and supervisors would oftentimes connect with other supervisors, asking for help or offering suggestions to each other's problems. This unofficial pre-meeting collaboration of the supervisors demonstrated to me their ability to work together and problem solve. It was pretty impressive. Researchers in Halbay in 2011 have been able to demonstrate that face-to-face meetings are three or more times more likely to have overlapping conversations. This was a highlight of the PC meeting environment. Very dynamic with very little silence. Then COVID happened, and with it, a mandate by our senior leadership team to perform meetings via teleconferencing. Quickly, the same very robust meetings I've come to experience decreased in time to about 2 to 3 minutes, and the experience oftentimes long pauses, perhaps to accommodate for the questions on clarifying remarks, or mostly to see if anybody was still awake. From a facilitator standpoint, these meetings I can't stress enough the challenges trying to remember every person's name on a teleconference, and to go through the roll call each time there's silence just to ensure that no one had questions. It was extremely challenging. Losing nonverbal communication impacted our team greatly. There are many visual cues one can surmise from a facial expression: agreement, confusion, disagreement, anger, happiness, etc. The lack of visual cues in communication can lead to miscommunication. Researchers Dowd and Stalker discovered in 2015. I believe the desire to not miscommunicate has led our team to not contribute much during our daily meetings, so I created the Virtual Meeting Toolbox. So what's in the toolbox? Well, first of all, there's webcams the staff can essentially attach to their computers and be utilized so that they can broadcast their image in video-led conferencing. Secondly, there's education on how to operate those webcam devices, as well as instructions on how to join or create Zoom meeting, the Zoom meeting application. And then, like any new meeting structure, it's important to lay down some ground rules and expectations. So I met with the team and we went through several different rules that we all agreed upon. Number one, no multitasking. Second, treat the meeting as if it was a face-to-face. So with that, staff are encouraged to ask questions and offer suggestions. Of course, their input is very valuable. Fifth, mute your microphone when you're not speaking. That was very important, and it took some time for some members of the team to get used to that. And then lastly, if topics strayed, we all agreed that we take it offline. So what was important is that we stuck to the agenda And when conversations did tend to stray off, then we all had the option to take it offline. So how the results were measured. This consisted of a baseline survey to staff, followed up with check-in surveys at week 3, week 4, and week 5. So to be able to quantify our observations, the responses followed the Likert scale. Respondents would rate on a scale of 1 for strongly disagree, to 4 strongly agree, to 6 statements when surveyed. And I've displayed all of the survey statements here for you to read. I understand it's a very busy slide, but I'll read through them with you. Number 1, all members actively participate in meetings. Number 2, I am able to offer advice to other supervisors. Number 3, I am able to get help from others when needed. Number 4, meetings add value to my department operations. Number 5, meetings are well organized. And then lastly, number 6, members show courtesy to each other during the meetings. Continuing with our results, this is a graphical representation of our weekly engagement survey results. This graph is very busy and I'll break it down now. So if you look over on the y-axis, we have responses. And those responses are segmented out by baseline, week 3, week 4, and week 5. Within each segment, survey responses vary from strongly disagree to somewhat disagree, somewhat agree, and strongly agree. Along the x-axis, we see a percent distribution of these responses. At baseline, you'll notice 20% of the total responses disagreed to some degree with the statements asked. And of course, at week 3, disagreement fell, as you notice, down to 8%. And at week 4, disagreement fell to 2%, but most notably, strong agreement rose sharply to 60%. This, I feel, was attributable to the first monthly operational meeting taking place since employing the Virtual Meeting Toolbox. This meeting is far longer than our daily meetings. This one typically lasted an hour and a half. And where items that discussed during this meeting are a little bit more than just operational. We're talking about strategic objectives, and we evaluate status on all of our capital projects during these meetings. So this meeting is previously to this point during the COVID environment teleconferencing. We noticed that this meeting itself drastically reduced from about an hour and a half down to 30 minutes in duration. So seeing at week 4, it bumped back up to the hour and a half mark, as well as having the robust agreeing percentile increase was really exciting. So in week 5, we see the trends did continue with 0 disagreement and strengthened agreement. In conclusion, as I discussed earlier, the project objectives of the Virtual Meeting Toolbox was to increase both employee engagement and satisfaction when it came to our department meetings. Why this was implemented was due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the sudden shift from our face-to-face meetings to teleconferencing virtually overnight, and the negative impact that was caused when staff could no longer see or read the nonverbal communication from their teammates. This lack of nonverbal communication demonstrated a lack of communication that may be a sign of fear of a conflict, one of the dysfunctions outlined by Lencioni in 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I discussed the contents of the toolbox being that of webcams, education on how to create and join Zoom meetings, and rules to new video-led conferencing models. I demonstrated how I was able to gather weekly data through surveys and demonstrate improvement in key objectives. A barrier I did experience during this project implementation was the sudden increase in demand for webcams and our IT department unable to fulfill the full order itself. However, I was able to have staff install the Zoom mobile application with minor education, and we're able to use that in addition to the full Zoom application. For the future, though, I'd like to see a use of a drop-in function in video conferencing like our Cranium Cafe, where one could simply just knock on the virtual door of a supervisor and have a virtual face-to-face. I really think that's going to be the future of our meetings. Lastly, I'd like to thank everyone who supported me throughout my career at Bellevue College. This experience has been amazing, and it's given me the tools I needed to be more of an effective leader and it's also increased my opportunity for furthering my education. Thank you very much for coming today.